Look at these 3 words written larger than the rest, with a special pride never written before or since. Tall words proudly saying, "We the people."
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Ask an Attorney. I'm your host, John Aarons, joined by the president. He's back.
Yeah.
Alexander, you've been a busy man.
A little bit, yeah. We've had a lot of casework going on for Lex Rex. Some of our cases have really been ramping up, taking on a few more great opportunities for us. We're now working on some of the Mike Lindell litigation.
Wow.
Especially his case against the FBI and Merrick Garland for the illegal seizure of his cell phone. So watch the news for that stuff. And our other cases, too, are really exciting stuff right now. There has not been a better time to get involved with Lex Rex. For those of you who've been thinking about joining, thinking about contributing on our website, now's the time.
Absolutely. So I believe our viewers could go to www.lexrex.org/donate in order to contribute to this cause. We are constitutional advocates that are fighting for your rights, and this gentleman right here will not back down.
No.
No, you won't.
No.
So good thing that we're busy. I know you're busy, so I want to be respectful of your time, our viewers' time. So the question that I had prepared for today
and your time
came
too,
from,
so.
Oh, not like my time matter. Oh, who knows? Thank you. So there's been a lot of news against, I'm going to talk about the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court of the United States, I'm under the impression, based on my Google research, very quick Google research, that we've had 9 Supreme Court justices since 1869, or at least that's...
We switched back to having 9 justices in 1869. Actually, we've had 9 justices originally since 1837.
Oh, okay.
That was changed in, I think, 1866. When it was scaled up to 10, but then it made a weird scheme where if 3 of them retired, they wouldn't be replaced. So theoretically scalable down to 7. Up to 11, and then theoretically scalable down to 7. But we returned to 9, as you mentioned, in 1869. So.
Well, you and I do a lot of board work, and basic Robert's rules. We won't get into that, but 10 Supreme Court justices, there would have to be a time that they ruled on something where they were 50-50 split.
Yeah, and we've had that problem before. Originally, when the judiciary was established, that would have been by the Federal Judiciary Act of, let's see, I wrote it down here because I'm bad with years. Of 1789, we established the Supreme Court with 6 members. That was an even number split, so obviously that's going to create a problem if there's any disagreement.
Right.
So we changed that in 1807 to a Supreme Court with 7 members, changed it again in 1837, and then with a little bit of interruption in the middle, it's basically been 9 members since 1837.
Okay, so everybody, for the purposes of the viewers that are here and everybody, we have all been used to 9 Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, and so have your parents, and so have your parents' parents, and so have...
Probably the parents' parents, maybe?
Yeah. Maybe they might have known a time when there were 10 or 11, but...
Possibly, but they didn't have cell phones.
Since then,
so.
Pretty much everybody alive right now is going to be used
We've
to
seen 9, right.
Yeah.
And I'm under the impression, too, or at least what the current administration may be saying, that, we can just modify it as we see fit, kind of like, I don't really like how much salt I put in this soup, so let me add a few more potatoes and a little bit of this. Let's dilute it a little bit.
Supreme Court bowl of soup.
This is too soupy for me.
It's gotten too conservative. You got to throw in more potatoes, kind of balance that out. I think that's sort of the thinking on that.
Yeah.
Certainly this administration is not the first one to think that way. It's happened before.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What are the rules? What does the Constitution say about, the Supreme Court?
Yeah, so the Constitution, first section of the Constitution at least, is divided into 3 articles.
3
Article
parts.
1, Article 2, Article 3. And those correspond with our 3 branches of government.
Okay.
So Article 1 is the legislative branch of government, has to do with Congress. Article 2 is the executive, so the president. Then Article 3 is the judiciary, the federal judiciary. So that deals with the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Article 3, Section 1 has this to say. It says, "The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior, and shall, at stated times, receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office."
Okay.
That's it.
I'm a numbers guy. I didn't hear any numbers.
No, you didn't.
Why?
They left it to Congress to decide how many members the Supreme Court was going to have. Now, Article 1 of the Constitution does mention a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So Chief Justice is a constitutional office that has to exist.
Okay.
That sort of presumes there's going to be more than one justice. But Congress does get to pick how many justices there are.
Interesting.
And originally, as I mentioned, in 1897, they decided there were going to be 6 justices. They changed it to 7, changed it to 9, and we kind of stuck there for a long, long time.
Okay.
Now, most other countries that have a constitutional court, they're a highest court that hears constitutional issues, have more justices than we do.
Got it.
We have fewer justices than most of those countries do. So when people talk about the idea of court packing, oftentimes they're talking about, well, I think usually it's kind of motivated by political purposes. Sort of the most famous court packing scheme in our nation's history would have been the one that occurred under President Roosevelt.
Tell me about that.
Well, we talked about it a lot on the podcast, but the Supreme Court basically just kept saying all his New Deal policies weren't legal. You don't have authority to regulate that. You don't have authority to regulate that. And a lot of that was done because we were sort of in the Lochner era at the time, Lochner v. New York, which applied economic due process to the court's opinions. It basically meant that if the federal government was trying to, well, or really even if state governments were too, but if they were trying to regulate economic policy, there was a higher level of scrutiny that had to be met, until there is what has come in history to be called the switch in time that saved 9, where Justice Roberts decided all of a sudden he was going to start upholding FDR's New Deal policies, and then kind of the need to pack the court evaporated because there was sort of a political switch on the court.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, court packing, very, very politically unpopular. It's one of those things where almost the less you know about the Constitution, the crazier it sounds. But even if you do know about the Constitution, I think especially if you know about the Constitution, you know how potentially politically hazardous it is to change the number of justices on the court.
I can imagine.
You really don't want the court to become just another political body. We've got 2 of those already.
The court is supposed to be separate of the political body.
That's right. They're supposed to be
That's
independent.
how it's designed.
Yeah, they're supposed to rule on the basis of law.
Sure.
Not on the basis of their political
Politics.
opinions.
Exactly.
Right. So when you just tell the court, you're going to serve at sort of the whim of whoever currently controls Congress, that could be a real problem.
Interesting. Yeah.
And, if, say what you will about the current makeup of the Supreme Court, maybe it's too conservative, maybe it's not. I don't know what people think about that. But the real risk, while the Democrats are in power right now, if they decide they're going to increase the number of left-leaning justices on the court, what's to keep the Republicans from doing the same thing once the majority of the court's Democrat and you get Republicans in next time?
I would agree with you. It's a slippery slope mentality. You end up going over here, we have it over there, so...
Look, the fights over judicial confirmation, so when a president tries to appoint someone to the Supreme Court and it goes to Congress and they have all those hearings, those have gotten political enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Those have really, it's not really a new phenomenon. They've been politicized at least since Woodrow Wilson tried to appoint Brandeis to the court, but especially in recent years, they've gotten very, very politicized. And part of that's envisioned by the founders because they know that there really is no perfectly neutral way to do this stuff. So they want to make sure that we have some things going to politically independent branches, but then being confirmed by political branches. But we've already got a lot of partisan rancor when it comes to appointing people to the court.
Okay.
I really don't think we need more. I really don't think we need to fight over the composition of the court. I think that's very, very dangerous. I think it could potentially jeopardize our republic if we were to change the numbers right now for the reasons that are proposed to change it. And when the Biden administration decided to explore the idea of packing the court, basically, because he said that we're exploring options for the Supreme Court, but really what that meant
we know
is,
what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he appointed a panel of who he claimed were some of the nation's best legal minds to decide whether or not this is a good idea. I looked at that list. I knew probably about 60% of the names on that list, and all the names that I knew, well, they weren't folks I would describe as our best legal minds. They were folks I would describe as probably our most partisan legal minds, tending toward President Biden's side of the political spectrum.
Got it. Okay.
So I was not at all confident about the way that committee would come out. I thought they were going to come out recommending some kind of, well, who knows? If you appoint only people of a particular political persuasion to a committee, shouldn't be surprising when it comes out with a particular political aim or agenda.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
They didn't do that. They came out with a 300-page document which purports to be neutral, but if you read between the lines, is very, very critical of the idea of court packing. They make it very clear that it's a dangerous option for the Biden administration and that he should not explore it.
So his own party, essentially. 300 pages. Ultimately, no. We don't think a good idea.
A bunch of hand-picked living Constitution guys who believe that, in my opinion, they believe our justices ought to sort of be God emperors who are dictating what our Constitution says. A bunch of these folks, even they recognize...
Even them.
Yeah, even they recognize the idea of packing the court is an extremely dangerous thing to do. I think the idea of court packing is already dead on arrival. I don't think Congress is going to do anything with it. They know they would all be voted out of office. One of the most contentious moments in the presidential debates in 2020, people started making memes out of it and whatnot afterward, but Biden was talking about how conservative or how he didn't like the appointees that were on, that Trump had picked for the Supreme Court.
Right.
And he starts asking Biden, Trump asks Biden, are you going to pack the court? Are you going to pack the court? And Biden won't answer the question. Eventually he just says, would you shut up, man?
Would you shut up, man?
Yeah, and that was the point where he did that. But they kind of had to deflect with that because packing the court, again, very politically unpopular and for good reason.
Right. And the other argument was that Trump had packed the court by appointing essentially 3 justices that tend to lean more in the conservative fashion. However, if you are a Supreme Court justice, regardless of your personal beliefs, that's not what you're tasked to do.
Right.
You are not tasked to rule based on your beliefs.
Regardless of whether or not you like Trump's picks or whether or not you think that Mitch McConnell was right to have blocked Merrick Garland from getting on the Supreme Court, which, looking back in retrospect, the way Merrick Garland's acting now, I think
doesn't seem like a bad idea.
Yeah, I think we could safely agree that blocking Merrick Garland was a good thing. That's not a partisan opinion. Merrick Garland is one of the worst attorneys general that we've had in the history of this nation, if not the worst.
I'll give you my personal American opinion. I would agree with you. I think I cannot stand the guy.
Well, we're suing him right now for Michael Lindell. So
this is why I love Lex Rex. I didn't even know that. So hey, you know what? There you go. I like that.
Yeah, but he's one of the worst in the history of the country. But regardless of your opinions on that whole matter, what Trump was doing was something permitted within the current rules established by Congress for the way the Supreme Court works and the way that we appoint justices to the Supreme Court. When you expand the number of justices, you're essentially changing the rules so that you can win now. I think that's a dangerous thing. Working within the rules is supposed to be the realm of political dissent, political disagreement in this country. When you start using the rules and weaponizing the rules themselves so that your side will win, I think that's when the American people ought to be concerned. A little bit nervous. Yeah,
absolutely.
A little bit concerned.
Well, the problem is that playing by the rules, even if it's not popular, is still playing by the rules.
Yeah.
You don't modify the rules of the game to fit your own personal agenda.
Right.
You just don't do that.
Well, and with the left's been getting mad in recent years, they didn't like this in the some of the election challenges to the 2020 election. They didn't like it. Certainly didn't like it with the way that Supreme Court nominees worked. Is that the right's been getting a little bit more. Well, they are using the rules strategically to their advantage without changing them. And the left doesn't like that. They've done that for years and years and years, but they don't like their opponents doing that. So all of a sudden they say, we want to throw out the rules and replace them with new ones.
That's not hypocritical at all.
Well, I'm not going to get into
That's
that,
okay.
but I don't think it merits
okay.
changing the rules and replacing them with new ones. We can use the rules creatively. That's fine. It's very different from changing them.
Absolutely. So, in regards to that, did you want to expand any more on the
No,
question?
I think that covers it.
Yeah.
I think my producer's telling us that we're at time. So
well, you and I like to talk a bit. So
yeah.
maybe let's direct people
and
back
it's been
to the
a
website.
week, so
yeah, well, we're friends, so we had to catch up.
Yeah.
But Alexander, you're doing great work. I truly believe you are one of probably youngest and last remaining true constitutionalists that truly believe in what so many men and women fought and died for, to have this right here.
Well,
you are upholding our traditions.
Thank you, John. That really means a lot. And I went on Ryan Heath's podcast for the Gavel Project last week, and he used an expression that I really like, so I'm going to borrow it.
Please.
We are the tip of the spear in defending the Constitution. That's the expression he used. I like it. I think it's absolutely true.
I love that. We might put that in the graphics or something. Huh?
Spear tip?
Nice.
I don't know.
We'll see. I'll work on that. It's okay. Side project.
Yeah.
Ladies and
I'm
gentlemen.
not a graphic design guy. I don't know.
No, you don't have enough time for that. Trust me. Thank you so much for being a part of this Ask an Attorney series. We want to thank all of our viewers. I'll redirect you to the website. So if you'd like to make a donation, this is not tax advice, but it is potentially tax deductible. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. www.lexrex.org/donate to make a donation. And
the government's going to get the money anyway. Use it to fight the government.
Use it to fight for your rights. Use it to fund this organization to help every single person here.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We play by the rules whether it's popular or not.
Yeah.
That's what
And
we
we'll
do.
make sure that they play by the rules.
Absolutely. We'll
You know,
hold them accountable.
That's our mission. Lex Ranks. The law is king. They are not king. They got to play by the rules the same way you or I do.
Absolutely.
And we'll make sure it happens.
Yeah, it may not be fun, but we play by the rules, darn it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so
We'll have
much for
fun
being a
doing
part
it.
of this. Yeah, we smile every once in a while. Alexander, really glad to have you back. Have a lot of fun, and thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, well, glad to be back. Thank you,
Thank you,
John.
viewers.